Dr. Stan Hartzler, who is a mathematics educator and a cognitive psychology researcher. Dr. Hartzler taught mathematics, science, computer science, and journalism for 21 years in junior high and high schools, mostly in suburban Chicago and in Texas. Very much alike, I presume, Dr. Hartzler. Dr. Hartzler served as a K-12 mathematics and science program leader for the Oklahoma City Public Schools, introducing a variation to mathematics instruction that moved 50% of the special education students to regular classrooms. He was one of the first 2 full-time employees at Saxon Publishers, and for that I will hold it against you as I struggled so much with Saxon Algebra 2. Give a Buckeye welcome to Dr. Stan Hartzler.
They always leave out the part where in high school, in the early 60s, I wore a slide rule on my hip. And when I got to college, I had to catch up with learning social graces. So I ended up failing 5 math classes, one of them twice. And this is in the era when there was no forgiveness, so I had to take the class again and get an A just to get a C average. And I wound up learning a great deal of mathematics, although a lot of wasted youth. But I never really did catch up on the social graces. Originally, I was asked to discuss Common Core mathematics at the level of assessment, which is critical. But it's hard to see behind the curtain. You can just see a little bit on the surface looking at the PARCC website. By the way, this is the yellow handout that you all got when you first came in. At the online PARCC site, I found examples so complex and often so advanced that they constitute a waste of time and money. On your handout there, you're going to see at grade 4, the first sample item from CTV McGraw-Hill shows an 11 by 8 grid that supposedly models or just represents full bags of clams. With effort, I realized that the squares on the grid actually represent the individual clams, not the bags. The vertical columns, which share vertical borders with each other, represent the bags. A better model would have had the columns separated by at least 1 millimeter of space. There are other issues with this example, especially the layout of the answer choices. The second sample item asks the students to write 3 equations for which the sum is 5/6. Getting past the strange idea that an equation has a sum. A confusion of correct answers comes to mind and will for any student successfully schooled in basics. Item 3 might be appropriate if Common Core had emphasized automation of arithmetic fact recall. A useless horizontal line above the student's answer space provides distraction. An accompanying statement on page 26 there asserts that each example shown aligns to a single Common Core standard. But the item 3 example aligns to 2 Common Core standards. This discrepancy is freely admitted to in the accompanying statement. Other examples from other sources are incredibly vague and likewise problematic, and I'm not going to bore you with other details. If you want to get them, you can go to the PARCC site. But we need to go what's going on behind the curtain. From previous experience with testing and curriculum schemes, it's not hard to ascertain what the Common Core people are doing. They pretend to offer at a price access to the power of learning, but then they withhold that learning and they hoard the power. They first create a national panic with scary content jargon, with premature placement of difficult topics and exotic examples. This is also there on page 1 of your handout. With reminders that we're behind other countries. Never mind that our students fell behind because of previous worthless but expensive responses to the last panic attacks. Second, with panic and jargon in place, Common Core people dumb down essential content in early grades, claiming to promote readiness and understanding and rigor. I will return to the issue of content weakness shortly. Third, the knowledge hoarders develop reassuring and foggy themes such as real-world modernization and technological innovation. The fog will help hide or excuse the dumbing down of basic curriculum content. We clearly see the basis of this garbage, which is simply insecure human nature. Only insecurity explains why people posing as caring saints want to hurt children. Only insecurity points to how we may eliminate these schemes if, Lord willing, we ever do. The dumbing down of elementary mathematics content should be our greatest concern here. Stanford Professor James Milgram has expressed valid concerns emphasizing high school content issues, but even if the final Common Core state standards address Dr. Milgram's concerns, students will still come through elementary Common Core mathematics with an adequate arithmetic foundation, making upper grade and high school experience difficult and sterile. A proper elementary foundation begins with number, including counting forwards and backwards, by ones and then by twos and threes and fours and fives, and fluent recall of arithmetic facts. Common Core people may claim that fluent arithmetic fact recall is what they intend by their vague language, but without clear statements, the standards are open to abuse by publishers. Then one of the most dangerous goals of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics will be realized. The original 1987 draft of NCTM's curriculum standards proposed delay of fluent recall of easy addition facts until second grade. When I protested, the goal was improved. We know these things about fluent recall of arithmetic facts, and this is handout part D. Fluent recall of facts can be attained by simply reading a set of fact statements aloud each day in first grade, both for addition and multiplication. And understanding may come later, it may be there right away, but it comes eventually. Fluent recall of facts makes higher mathematics easier to develop and to master. So why does Common Core call for delay? Also, why are the elementary mathematics vocabulary lists so weak? Also, why is there no telling time on the clock face or to the nearest minute in first grade, which we have done in lab schools and student teaching situations and so on? Identifying coins and their values, learning traditional arithmetic processes, all that set the stage for algebra. Why make arithmetic processes so complicated and pointless? Is pencil paperwork expected, or will the schools cave to the early calculator use prematurely? Where do students learn to verify results without a calculator? Where does serious reading and writing of numbers begin? Thousands, millions, and so on. Without these topical foundations, students are denied participation in daily occurrences of arithmetic. Remember the name National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. Those of you who once had the International Reading Association and the National Education Association on your radar, make room for another target. The National Council of Teachers of Mathematics has long been subversively peddling junk philosophies and practices and undermining effective strategies. Who here is a life member of that group? One of the worst of the junk has been in the impossible quest for that magic learning approach that will cement an idea in a student's mind right away. Cognitive psychologists who study scientifically how people learn, recall, apply, know that each new lesson is but a first draft. 80% is gone in 24 hours no matter how well you teach it. Okay? And that first draft is efficiently tidied up in subsequent days after sleep has provided natural digestion of learning. There is no hurry. Roman numeral 3, what should be happening? As to methodology, why is there no mention of ongoing review in Common Core? Now, what do I mean by ongoing review? Imagine your Buckeye basketball coach says, okay, team, Monday we're only going to dribble. Tuesday we're only going to shoot free throws, no dribbling. Wednesday we're going to be practicing three-pointers, no free throws, no dribbling. On Thursday we practice inbound plays, and then Friday we're going to play the University of Illinois. No successful coach of athletics or director of music or theater would do anything so ridiculous. With good coaching, each day's practice is mostly cumulative review with some time set aside for moving some aspect to some new level. Yet the ridiculous, fragmented approach is how most people in the United States learn mathematics, and consequently why we have such national illiteracy and phobia regarding mathematics. In the Oklahoma City public schools in the early 1980s, now this is handout page 5, there's a graph and there's examples of this. Students were given a daily exercise salad of 1 add, 1 subtract, 1 multiply, and 1 divide. And those students quickly climbed from well below to well above the national average in the California Achievement Test. These were mostly ghetto minority students. They weren't given equality. They were given solid opportunity and confidence for conquering more mountains. Why are such strategies ignored? Who are the perpetrators who instead use panic to destroy opportunity? Roman numeral part 4 there, who is making the malicious mathematics? Years of investigation, the motives of phony reform have shown many motives, all of them born of human insecurity. And I've got them listed there, we'll go fast. We got the secular humanists that used schools K through college to hide the inspiring beauty of mathematics, helping promote atheism, for instance, John Dewey. And we have racists. When schools fail, children are left to depend on family, leaving those with weak backgrounds without bootstraps. Jim Crow laws are gone, but the insecure prejudice behind those laws is sadly still there. Corrupt political power, maintaining a fearful welfare population, begging for more tax money while ensuring waste. We have social control freaks, conditioning mobs to bend to popular culture, peer opinions, and groupthink. Bill Ayers promoting the Stalinist Vygotsky, for example. The job status, pay, and security people, mathematicians, engineering, and statisticians, limiting entry to their professions. Self-preservation, as the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. If we had successful programs, would we need a National Council of Teachers of Mathematics? Profit by marketing faddish, worthless lesson materials and sustaining need for the next round. We have seditionists weakening our national defense and our invention-driven economy. And higher education tuition grows. Just gathering more money through the uncredited medium courses that the students have to take once they get to higher ed. Roman numeral 5, what is happening with secondary mathematics? To the secondary issues listed by Professor Milgram, I will add the list found in the handout on page 4. I will also add 2 critical themes in algebra and geometry missing in Common Core mathematics. The missing algebra theme is inductive thinking for arithmetic, and this is also on your handout. For example, if common denominators are needed to add arithmetic fractions, then common denominators are needed for algebra fractions. Algebra use of exponents and coefficients is usually confusing. Well-grounded students handle such difficulties through inductive generalization. What works in arithmetic works in algebra. The missing geometry theme is deductive structure. Geometry structure moves from undefined terms to definitions, to hypotheses, to theorems based on all of the above plus previously proved theorems. This structure is important to a student designing a persuasive speech or an argumentative essay in social studies or language arts. Later, citizens use persuasive structure to write civic improvement grants to win out over other equally qualified but less persuasive applicants. One of the reasons why mathematics is still a valid pre-law major, because of the structure of arguments. Handout page 6, we have a missing and helpful theme common to all mathematics and most other disciplines as well. Generalization and discrimination, here shown as classification and relationship. One thing at a time versus 2 things at a time. This is very helpful for organizing the giant pile of geometry vocabulary. Classification and hierarchical ordering are inborn impulses, and these in sequential thought need exercise in our core subjects. The classic Tower of Hanoi puzzle helps students develop sequential thinking while having fun. No such opportunities are suggested in Common Core mathematics. Much more is missing, but equally disturbing is the presence of general sloppiness and wrong answers in example problems, and the vague wording of many of the Common Core standards is alarming. Publishers may claim alignment, but supply weakness, and why not? The standards say the students will work with, they will understand, they will reason with, gain familiarity, develop understanding, investigate, rewrite, experiment with, interpret. What difference does this make? Soberly, it makes life or death difference for students, for communities, for economies, for the United States. Yes, a nation at risk reported it right, an act of war. And I'll add an aside here. When that report came out, well, it was a couple of years after, I was going through the algebra textbooks. This was my doctoral dissertation. I never planned to go to graduate school, and when I saw that algebra books from 1881 and 1910 were helping my students in suburban Chicago win math contests better than the modern ones, I decided someone needed to research that. And so while I was going through 1806, Thomas Jefferson to 1982, I kept noticing this progression of dumbing down, especially starting in the 1920s. And every now and then I would slap my work area there and I'd tell my wife, if someone had done this, just to weaken the United States as quietly as they possibly could, they couldn't do a better job than what I'm seeing right here. And then a couple of years later, out came this report, and I asked her, do you remember when I said that? She said, you bet I do. Quality mathematics programs enhance students' enjoyment of freedom of opportunity in life after high school. Quality math programs give confidence for creativity and invention, driving the economy ever upward. Quality programs give inspiration and awe concerning the origins of the fantastic order of beauty, of mathematics, of nature. Quality math programs give confidence for independent thought about faith, government, self, purpose, and relationships. Quality math programs give students engagement in endless, inexpensive recreational opportunities. On the other hand, poor programs intensify student insecurity, leading to discouragement, disruption, distraction, and dropping out of school, despairing of any meaningful purpose for life or death. I bitterly recall one manipulator telling a semi-literate young lady at a ghetto high school, "You're only good for one thing." With the negative forces and consequences in mind, we must ask Bill Gates and David Coleman and Bill Ayers, many others, including the Department of Education, the President, and our National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, why? Why this act of war on our children? Woe to the person through whom these stumbling blocks come. If these vague Common Core standards are the blueprints of our future, our children suffer. Publishers claiming alignment produce shoddy materials. Our nation will weaken beyond repair. We will see more of this pattern of panic, control, and extortion. To part 7, what do we need to do? Teacher education scholarships for those with strong academic potential to diminish the current crop of sheepish go-along teachers. We need teacher certification exams reflecting good common sense learning principles and the influence of cognitive psychology, not theory, not Skinner, not Vygotsky. We need to do a national organization for math education with funding for press agency. We need pre-engineering content in our secondary courses backed up with ongoing review, basketball coach style. We need greater participation in interscholastic math content. We need to resist the clamor about changes in how children think, changing needs in the workplace, integration of technology just for the fun of it. Maximize local control. We need free market curriculum. Children raised to be spiritually secure leaders of tomorrow. I hope she was listening. We need prayer for spiritual growth, security, salvation, and forgiveness for all mankind, but especially our fellow citizens, and most especially our leaders. We need common sense. Knowledge is power. Sharing knowledge is sharing power and opportunity. Denial of learning opportunity is absolutely a civil rights issue and a symptom of rampant personal insecurity in our society. Among the most easily ignored common sense principles of learning are these. Time causes forgetting and further learning causes confusion. Time causes forgetting. Even though I taught Simon and Garfunkel's song Sounds of Silence in guitar class over several years in the 1970s, I struggle now to recall those lyrics. Time causes forgetting. Further learning causes confusion or interference. Learning the next Simon and Garfunkel song meant more practice on the Sounds of Silence, else I would get the songs confused. Further learning causes confusion. So how do we get out of this? Ongoing review, such as the athletic coaches practice in the Saxon math program. These turn forgetting into recall power and turn confusion into conceptual understanding. And while vouchers are good, significant gains have been made in public schools with patient use of common sense ongoing review. To Part 8, where may we find inspiration? In finding for the plaintiffs in Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court of the United States stated, education in public schools is a right which must be made available to all on equal terms. As with Brown versus Board of Education, we are faced with civil rights and human rights violations, the core education issue of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a core issue in generating income for supporting churches and missions and principled political candidates. Only look at North Dallas High School in the 1980s and 1990s to see what can be accomplished when these simple common sense principles applied in mathematics classes of disadvantaged students. The story of the school board's removal of the Saxon mathematics books over teacher protests was covered on national television by 60 Minutes. A year later, Newsweek told of how the teachers were still using the Saxon material secretly. Nikki Hayes' biography of John Saxon tells the whole story in case you're interested. I have only wrath for such destructive politics, forcing students into victim situations and attitudes. We are faced with a complex mess demanding decisive action by true leaders. At North Dallas High School and elsewhere, disadvantaged students were given more than empty hope and negative change. Until the Dallas administration took it away, North Dallas High School students saw empty hope and negative change replaced by learning, confidence, and scholarship opportunities, the education envisioned by the majority opinion in Brown versus Board of Education. Unlike deprived Common Core students and most other students over recent generations, whose frustration is still my daytime and nighttime pain. The North Dallas students could sail through algebra homework with a song from their ancestors' time ringing from the same skies that gave Brown victory over the Board of Education. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord. Be free. Anybody? Thank you. You're the first ones. Mathematics learning issues are issues of Judeo-Christian faith. Naked and you clothed me, hungry and you fed me, discouraged, and you gave me a way out. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. These issues are civil rights issues as well. The degrading Jim Crow laws once told some people that they were inferior. These laws are gone, but the human insecurity prompting such degradation is not. Jim Crow laws have been replaced by mathematics classes devoid of clear, direct instruction, empty of the efficient Saxon exercise structure, and bereft of helpful assessments. This time the targets for degradation are children of every race, every faith, and every background short of extreme privilege. Mathematics classes taught per the recommendations of Common Core, and again to the end of your handout here, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. These classes, taught per those recommendations, will bind the minds and spirits of today's children more firmly and more destructively than the coal mine company store bound the incomes of the immigrant miners, binding more firmly and destructively than the iron chains bound the hands and feet of the slaves of early America. A nation at risk, an act of war. Where are the civil rights leaders? Many are cashing in on white guilt and ongoing victim politics, which would disappear with programs enjoyed by the students in Oklahoma City and North Dallas High School. Without the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics and Common Core to perpetuate victim populations, such so-called leaders would be forced to consider the spiritual motivation and the productive and unifying principles eloquently expressed by Dr. King and his contemporaries. We may never be free at last from the insecurity that drives degrading curriculum. We can take steps to diminish the power of those who hoard learning. Let us ask for God's help in knowing His will and doing His will, and humbly work for His honor and glory and for the growth of our children in His pleasure. Thank you.